Well, thanks, Andy, very much for inviting me to do this, because this has been a labor of love and blood and sweat and tears. And I want to take you on the journey of what I decided to do, a very harebrained idea, on Friday, March 6th of earlier this year. And I'm going to kick it off by showing you the opening slide here. This whole thing is called We'll Do It Live, writing a book in real life and real time. And that's what what I actually did. I decided on Friday, March 6th, that I was going to write a new book. Why? Well, let's go into that, shall we? First phase of this entire thing was all about the inspiration. And that inspiration occurred because I met two Australians at Social Media Marketing World in 2018, and they became fast friends. And you can see them right there. That's Todd on the left and his wife Alex on the right, and they are both partners in a online or a digital-based marketing firm in Sydney, Australia called Fletch Digital. They're super people, and we hung out quite a bit during Social Media Marketing World 2020 because it occurred right before COVID lockdown. So while we're there, Todd and I were talking one night, and he told me about this dude. That's Christian Small. He's actually a golf professional based in Sydney, Australia. And, I'm not a big golfer because, I like to blame my shoulder and my dislocated elbow from off-road motorcycle riding. But the fact is, I'm just not very good. And I could use someone like Christian, who is a golf pro, to work on my game. But what's that got to do with marketing? Well, the fact is, golf pros are people who need to market themselves. And he came up with something that blew me away. Todd told me his story, which was he decided one day that his life was kind of mundane, that something was missing. So he did a little research and discovered that the Australian Open tournament was 191 days from what the date he was thinking about this was. So he decided that for 191 days, he was going to do something interesting online via posting, demonstrating, whatever it was, in order to try to prepare himself to qualify for the Australian Open. Now, long story, or I should cut to the chase and say, it's unfortunate that he didn't qualify for the Australian Open. But what he did was something even more dynamic, and that is he built his personal brand in a huge way by demonstrating every night who he was, what he does, and how he does it, to the point that he built in what I like to think of as an online gallery, just like going to a golf tournament. He had a gallery of people who would show up every night to see what he was doing. So much so, and the story is unbelievable, about 2/3 of the way through that 191-day journey, he got one of his gallery members to pony up, or this gallery member volunteered and said, listen, I've been watching what you're doing. I'm amazed at what you're doing. I would like to donate $10,000 in your name to the charity of your choice. And so he did. And the other thing, another person who's a digital gallery member of his said, I don't have 10,000, but I'd like to donate 1,000. So he got to donate in his name $11,000 to the charity of his choice that helps at-risk youth in Melbourne, Australia. I heard that story and was blown away and kind of filed it away. As I do, I take these things and file it away in my mind. A little bit later at the same event, Social Media Marketing World 2020 in San Diego, I met my friend Melanie Diesel, and in 2018 or 2017, I wrote about her in my first book, Rotoma, the ROI of Social Media Top of Mind, and referred to her as my spirit animal, my exemplar on how to use social media to effectively boost your personal brand. And so back then, I gave her a copy of this, my 2017-2018 book, Rotoma. We took a photo that was basically this photo, but in 2020, she we recreated that photo inadvertently because she was giving me a copy of her brand new book, The Content Fuel Framework, which had just come out. And, I was really delighted to see it. I was so excited for her. And then I got a tremendously huge case of author's envy. I mean, I was so inspired / pissed off that she had a new book and I didn't, that I started thinking, I need to write a new book. And then I did the math, which is how my brain works. And I said, Christian Small, 191 days, did something amazing. How many days until the end of the year? So when I got home, I did a little math and found out that there were 301 days left in 2020. And I thought to myself, can I write a book in 301 days? Well, I started thinking about that, and that was the inspiration for everything that came next, which starts with phase 2. If phase 1 is inspiration, phase 2 is all about preparation. So I thought to myself, writing a book is like eating an elephant. And how do you eat an elephant? The answer is one bite at a time. So what does that mean? First of all, I had to take my very first bite, which is pick a model. And I have a number of books by respected writers that I really enjoy that work in the marketing space. And so what I did was, you can see on those little pink Post-it notes, I literally went through them and counted the number of lines on each of the pages. Like, I picked a copy-heavy page, one that was kind of wall-to-wall, so I could count the number of lines, the number of words per line, the number of pages in the book, and all that stuff. And you can see, if you can read my chicken scratch handwriting, that the books varied from around 80,000 words to about 120,000 words. So I knew I wasn't going to do 120,000 words, but 80,000, what's that look like? Well, I picked a model, a specific model, which is Mark Schaefer's book, Marketing Rebellion. And that was just, and this is estimated. I didn't go through and count every word on every page, but based on the way his pages were laid out, there's around 80,000 words in there. So that was a good target marker for me. And so I took that book as my model and then did a little math. In fact, you need to do the math to figure out just, is it doable? So here's my math. First, what form factor do I want this to be in? And the answer to that is, I want a 6x9 paperback book, just like my first one. Right here. 6 inches across by 9 inches tall. I knew I wanted that because I wanted them to line up nicely on a bookshelf. How many possible lines per page? Well, based on my first book, that was about 40 lines possible per page of packed, dense copy. How many words per line? An average of 12 per line. Maximum words per page then is 480 words. But the reality is, with spacing, with title pages, with some images here and there, I was going to get an average words per page of about 325, maybe. So let's round down to 300. But in my mind, I'm going 325. Okay, cool. Planned number of words for the book, I've already said 80,000 words. So do a little bit of math here and say 80,000 words divided by 325 words per page comes out to 256 pages or 246 pages, which is, that's a good hefty book, because my first book is 216 pages, I think. And it's a nice hefty book, so this one would be just a little bit bigger. Oh, I like that, because it's got that heft, or what I call plonk factor, which is you take the book, you drop it on the table, and it goes plonk, as opposed to one of those self-produced things that's actually like a bunch of blog posts that you put into a book, and it's 75 pages, and you sell it for, $7.99 or something like that. That's not a book to me. A book has to break the 200-page mark, and ideally well over 200 pages. So a 250-page book for me, that's what I wanted. Do a little bit more math. 80,000 words divided by 301 days means I've got to come up with 265 words per day. Can I do that? Yeah, that's doable. If I said I had to come up with 2,000 words per day, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that. But I look at this and go, can I keep up with this? Yeah, I can. So all of a sudden, my inspiration became a doable thing if I got started right away, and so I did. And the first thing I did was, I believe you got to see it to be it. Well, it will not be surprising to anybody who knows me, but I am very much a writer who loves to chase squirrels. So the first squirrel I chased was actually designing the book cover because I needed to see it to be it. And here, if you look closely, you can see some funny Easter eggs I built in here. Like the blurb on the front cover says, "This book is really great. DP really knows how to put an audience to sleep. 4 stars for Insomniacs by Smarty McSmartass, author of The Smart." That was just me entertaining myself, but it was a reminder to me that I needed to put some blurbs in here, and we'll talk about that. But I needed to see this image because I needed to see my goal in order to keep myself on track to achieve that goal. In fact, this is the wall. If I look right up there, that's exactly what I see, which is a black and white copy of the book cover, which was a continual reminder that I need to work on this beast of a book and I can't take a day off. And so I didn't. I kept moving forward because I had the image in front of me. That's the carrot in front of this donkey that kept me moving. And as I kind of alluded to, when I designed that book cover, I needed to build in blurbs, which is, I don't want to just design a cover. I want to design a book cover, a real book cover, the kind of book cover that you see on a table and it invites you to pick it up. So part of that is I wanted to build blurbs into the book. Here's that blurb I told you about by Smarty McSmartass. Well, here on the back, I've got a room for another couple of blurbs as well, which I'll talk about in a few minutes on actually getting those blurbs. But I built the blurbs into the book image to remind myself that I needed to actually think about getting those and include them as part of my strategy in getting this book done. So the way I go about working, and every writer's different. Some writers will take a yellow legal pad and write first word, longhand to last word. Great. If you work that way, that's fine. I don't work that way. I have to sketch it out, not in a linear outline way, but in a very amorphous way. So I love a technique called mind mapping. If you are not a mind mapper, but you think like me, you need to become a mind mapper. And I actually use a program called iThoughtsX. And as you can see right there, you can see a bunch of ideas. Like each of those entries is a discrete idea. And those ideas can be dragged and dropped all over the place as you will, because that helps someone like me go, I know I want to write about this, but where does it go? No. Oh, it goes here, and I can drag it, and then I can drag an entire section, and I can reorder the chapters or the sections at any time very, very easily. In fact, if you look here, you can see some actual chapters or sections of the book, and you can also see some that got cut because I didn't bother writing them because they didn't fit the narrative arc of the book. But by doing this, I can get my thoughts on screen and move them around as I want to come up with a plan to actually write the book. And mind mapping, there are many different programs out there, but I love this one by Tokita Ware called iThoughtsX, which has both Mac, iOS, and Windows versions. If you're a Mac user, and it's really fantastic because you can get the iOS version for your phone. And if you're someone like me whose brain is always on the fly, like I'm out walking my dogs, that's one of my best ideation times. I can whip out my phone, go to iThoughtsX, capture the idea in my mind map, and then when I come back to my laptop or my desktop, all of the information that I just entered is there as well because it syncs via the cloud. Fantastic tool, especially if you're like me, someone who kind of grabs ideas on the fly and then figures out where they go later. If you're a linear person, you might want to do outlining. If you're a file card person, you might want to do physical file cards. You could use a tool like Trello, which is a fantastic tool for this because, again, the file cards, you can arrange things any way you want. But the bottom line is, if you're writing a book and you're not a first word to last word writer, you need to come up with a system to keep you working and moving forward. My system is mind mapping. Then I take that and those ideas, and I need to go into the next phase, which is actually executing this. Because again, this was not about me thinking about it too much. It's about me thinking about it and getting going and doing it live every night for 301 consecutive days on YouTube Live, Twitch, and Facebook Live. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to go to my absolute favorite tool for writing a book, and that is a tool called Scrivener, which is available, I think, for Macs, Linux machines, and Windows, so you have no excuse. And the thing about Scrivener is it's designed to write books, not process words. Microsoft Word, can you write a book in Microsoft Word? Yes, and it will kill you because it's a pain in the butt. I like to call Microsoft Word something else, but let's not go there. Instead, let's talk about Scrivener and what it can do for you. Here you see the average Scrivener page, and you've got a couple of things. Here, the main window, that's where you write the section. You can drag photos in. You can do all that stuff. And then over here on the left is the navigation pane or the chapter pane. And you got everything from title page, copyright, blurb page, dedication, contents, forward. All of these things are there to remind you that you need to write them. And in this case, right after I got done with my mind map, I transferred that mind map over into Scrivener, and I started outlining the book section by section in the order I had already messed around with in the mind map. Now, that didn't stop me from messing around with it here, because again, you can drag and drop sections to reorder things anytime you want. But the thing is, it allows you to focus. So for example, the very first section of the book is about Tom Peters' big idea about personal branding. So I knew that was going to lead out the book. And so when I decided to sit down on one night and write it, I knew exactly what I was going to write about. I wasn't thinking about the big book. I was thinking about this small bite, this elephant bite section about the book. And I could focus. And the cool thing about Scrivener is, as I said, you can drag photos in, images in, you can collect background information. It's got incredible, deep, rich features for writers, not only of nonfiction books, but fiction books. You can put links in separate sections. You know, it's a fantastic tool, and it's not that expensive. I think it's under $100. But it is a tool that writers of books swear by, because otherwise, if they had to do it in Microsoft Word, they'd be swearing at it. Get it? This is where I start, Scrivener. But it's not where I stop, because as I'm writing this book, I also need to be live streaming it, because that was part of my deal, right? I was going to do what Christian Small did, but in my case, I was going to live stream the writing of the book every single night for 301 nights. Is that insane? Yes, it is. But it's also the thing that made it kind of interesting. And the biggest part for me, just like Christian Small, he knew that saying publicly, I'm going to do this for 191 days, my friends are going to hold me to that. I knew as a writer that if I relied on my diligence and discipline, I would not write in the book every day. I just knew it. But if I went out there and made this big pronouncement that I was going to write a book for 301 consecutive days, that I was going to keep that promise, because the worst thing I can do is what in marketing is called over-promising and under-delivering. I'll be honest with you. Some nights I made it 15 minutes. Some nights I was not feeling it, so I came down here and started working on it, and then went, you know what? I'm not feeling it. I've got no ideas. I'm very tired. 2 nights, and by the way, my 301 consecutive day streak was broken when I had 2 nights where I had Lyme disease and a temperature of 103 degrees. And I tried to come down on those nights, even though I was really, really sick, because I made that promise to what I like to refer to as my peer pressure posse, the people online who, I'll be on, and there weren't a lot of people, but every night there'd be 1 or 2 people watching on Twitch or YouTube Live or Facebook Live. And I just felt like if I didn't come and show up, I would be just this huge embarrassment. I would feel my face flush even thinking about not working on the book. It kept me honest. So, live streaming. Why did I choose to do live streaming? This is insane. Well, I've gone to social media marketing world 3 years in a row. And the second year I was there, I learned all about live streaming, and I thought that would be right up my alley because I'm very kind of a performer-based person. I've got a lot of skills when it comes to kind of being very extemporaneous. You know, it goes back to my improv background and stuff like that. So I thought that live streaming would be something I should do. Well, I thought that in 2019 and then really didn't do it. So one of the things I wanted to do was really learn live streaming. And if you want to do that, do it multiple days in a row. So I decided, let's do it 301 days in a row. And believe me, not every episode of what I call BOOKWARD BOUND turned out really well, but I did learn how to do this by doing it, because that is my way. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing you need is a broadcasting software of some type. You know, there's OBS Studio, there's StreamYard is actually what you're looking at right now. You can do it via that. Well, because I'm a Mac-based creative, I use Ecamm Live, which is really a fantastic tool. And what you're seeing right now is actually going out via Ecamm Live. And I didn't tell Andy this, but this whole thing is going out to YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitch as I speak via Ecamm Live to Restream.io. And while Ecamm Live costs something, Restream.io, how much have I paid Restream for what is now 297 consecutive nights of live streaming? 0. Because they have a free level that allows you to go out to, I think, 3 different channels. If you have a paid version, you can go out to like 20 different channels, you know, stuff I've never heard of. But because I only really cared about YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitch, Restream's free level is fine for me. And that allowed me to go out every single night. And here's the Restream connection page. And you can see I'm connected to my Twitch account, my YouTube account, and my Facebook account. So every time I press one button, everything that I'm broadcasting goes out to those 3 things simultaneously with absolutely no intervention on my part. Afterwards, I'll go in and I'll clean up titles and stuff like that. But right now, people can watch this live stream on those things for absolutely free from my end, for absolutely free on their end. And I'm getting this tremendously huge force multiplying effect on me writing a book live. So here's what it looks like on YouTube. You can see over here, or down here, BOOKWARD BOUND, 12/28/2020. Guess what? That was last night. I took this screenshot. Day 297 of 301. More finished sanding for the book. Yeah, I'm literally going through the book, making corrections and stuff like that live now. You can see I've kept my promise. This entire thing right now has 295 daily live streams, and 2 of them didn't show up as live streams, but they're actually posted as videos, but they're part of the whole same endeavor. Well, it's not just there. It's not just on YouTube. It's also on Twitch. And you can go see these right now. You can see the first one I did. You can see the one I did last night. You can see any of them in whenever you want to look at them. And you'll see me not feeling it, all of a sudden writing a whole ton. Some of them are an hour long. Some are half an hour. Some are 15 minutes. It doesn't matter. I came down here. I worked on the book every single night, and the book kept progressing forward. I kept taking bites out of the elephant. It's also on Facebook. Like if you follow me on Facebook, you've undoubtedly seen this, where you can see BOOKWARD BOUND, 301 days from I should really do this to done. This is my title screen for the live streams. And then I just say another 20 pages are edited and proofed. Boom. No big deal, because I'm not there to entertain you. I'm there to get the book done. And the funny thing is, people are chiming in, people I've never met, people I don't even know where they're from. And they'll just say, hey, great to see you doing this, or, you know, good luck with this, or what programs are you using? Stuff like that. Doesn't matter. It's that they're keeping me honest, making me show up. And I'm slowly, one person at a time, building a community of people who might be interested in my book creation journey. But I'll tell you something that it would be very interesting is that nobody would know anything about this book if I were just sitting here at home writing it 301 days in a row. I'm getting credit. I'm demonstrating my personal brand, who I am, what I do, how I do it, while writing a book about personal branding. It's kind of meta, but I think it's ultimately a really, really good thing. So here's a screenshot from the live stream. And as you can see, what's that in my hand? Oh, that looks oddly like a printed book. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. But here's the thing. I needed to do that times 301 days. And so far, as I said, last night was day 297. Tonight will be episode 298. And I am well on my way to fulfilling that and getting to this next phase, which is publication. How? And here's the thing that I just want to make sure everyone really, really understands. For the first time in your life, in the history of humankind, you can do something like self-produce your own book for $0. Now, self-publishing's been around forever. I think the first editions of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass were a self-published book by Walt Whitman, a self-funded book, right? Well, he had to pay to have those book copies made. I don't have to do pay anything to have these book copies available to be purchased on Amazon, the world's largest online marketplace, right? How cool is that? So there's this tremendous opportunity out there just waiting for anyone who wants to self-publish. You can do it, and you don't have to pay anybody. You know, my book cover is as good as I could make it and design it myself. But if I didn't want to do that, I could always get someone on Fiverr to design me a book cover for $25 or something like that based on my idea that I provide them. You know, there are tons of different ways to do this very, very cheaply. In my case, I choose to do it 100% myself, 100% sweat equity, with $0 invested in this. But let's say you had $500 to play with to self-produce a book. You could. You could have people help you, everything from designing the book cover to final proofing and editing. I'm not doing that, to my terror, but you could, because it's available to you. Publication. This is a huge phase, and one that forces me to use the thing I hate, which is Microsoft Word. Remember how I used Scrivener to write the book? Well, just like a developer will use a tool to write code, they have to compile that code into an actual application or whatever. In the case of Scrivener, you take what you have written and you compile it into a Word document that you can then further format and correct and stuff like that in Microsoft Word. And that's what I'm using right now. In fact, it looks exactly like this. Again, I'm a Mac user, so this is what Word on the Mac looks like. If you're a Windows user, you'll probably recognize a lot of the features, but it'll look slightly different. And you can see right there a page spread. Now, one of the things Microsoft Word does that really grates my cheese is that if it looks like it's a left reading page, it's actually a right reading page, and vice versa. So right there you see up here Nonfiction Brand. That appears on a left reading page, and DP Knudten appears on a right reading page, part of the spread, right? It's just a quirk, and there's probably a workaround for it, but frankly, I've gotten used to the fact that I have to reverse it in my mind, and I'm okay with it. But you can see here that I've got a page that has a significantly sized image in it, that has a caption, and it breaks up 2 paragraphs of copy. Scrivener does not have this deep a layout possibility yet. Are they working on it? I sure hope so, because I would like to avoid Microsoft Word altogether. But Microsoft Word does have some powerful features when it comes to things like generating a table of contents or an index and stuff like that. And if you need to have footnotes and stuff like that, I hate to say it, but Microsoft Word might be good enough for you, or it might be the place you want to start. But not for me. However, I do need to go through this with a fine-tooth comb and make corrections and make sure the gutter is right. Like you can see right here, the distance right here on this margin compared to here, well, that's due to the fact that this is a right reading page, and you need to have significant gutter margins on both sides. So here's the gutter on the other page, so that when you open the book, you can actually read the pages. You don't want them have print going too close to the binding, right? So this is the gutter, this distance here and this distance here. And consequently, you can see exactly how much room on a page you have to use to do this. And that's what I use Microsoft Word for the final finish carpentry, if you will. The final finish sanding of the book occurs, of the guts of the book, occur in Microsoft Word. And then I get to go to the point of getting it ready for publishing via Kindle Direct Publishing. And you can go right now to kdp.amazon.com and you can create an account even if you don't have a book. You can create the meta stuff about the book even if you haven't written the book. So you can see right down here, I've already got the book started, but it's a draft unpublished book, which means that I can upload the PDF cover, which is a separate file from the guts of the book, and then I can upload the guts, and then I can get a proof copy of the book, and I'll show you one in a second. But first, I have to do all the meta stuff about the book. What's it called? Who are the writers? Things like ISBN numbers, LCCN numbers, which I'll talk about in a minute. The cool thing about this is it kind of walks you through it, and you don't have to finish it all the way through. You can start and answer a few questions about your book and then save it as a draft and then go back in and fill more. So you don't have to feel overwhelmed by this publishing part of it. You just do a little bit, save it as a draft, do a little bit more, save it as a draft. As you learn more, save it as a draft. As I get a final page count, save it as a draft. And my final files are not up at KDP yet, Kindle Direct Publishing, but my proof ready or my proof version files are up there right now. And that gets to the next section of the publication part, which is proof it hard. And what do I mean by that? Always proof from a hard copy. And this is where I get to do something that I'm really excited about. I get to show you my baby. Say hello to my baby. This is my baby, and this is what my baby looks like. Although my baby isn't quite done, and I still have placeholder blurbs up here and here, and you can see my baby has a big gray thing across the front that says not for resale. Why? Because it's a proof copy. That allows me to do what I am talking about right here, which is proof from a hard copy. It doesn't matter how good you think your screen, how diligent you've been on your screen. See it in copy, in a hard copy, and all of a sudden you see stuff like this. A whole bunch of stuff you need to change. Like, well, it read really well on screen, but it doesn't read really well on paper. Guess what? When you're writing a book, paper wins. And so you have to proof a hard copy. And when you do it, use a blue pen. Why? A red pen is too judgmental. Literally, I learned this in a grammar class a long time ago. Don't use a red pen, especially if you're proofing your boss's work, because it's too judgmental. Instead, use a blue pen, which has significant color contrast to the black and white page. Makes it very easy to see the corrections, but it doesn't make you feel like you've just been in the worst English class with the most evil English teacher of all time. Use a blue pen and make those corrections. Another question you have to answer during the publication phase is, how much is this book going to cost? Well, there's a whole lot to the economics of Amazon and book cost and stuff like that, and a lot of people will produce a book for $9, $9.99 or something like that. To me, the way I think about it is different, which is you get what you pay for. If I've put a lot of time into making this book as good as I possibly can, I am not going to discount it. The other thing is that I do a fair amount of live presentations, and at the end I'll talk about my books and I'll have some with me. I always price my books at $20.95. Why? If I'm at a location like a conference or something and I'm selling my book, it's very easy for people to whip out a $20 bill, or for me to use Square and do a very quick transaction with credit cards at a flat $20. That way, or if someone's an Amazon Prime member, they can order it via Amazon Prime, get free shipping and all that stuff, and they're only paying $20.95 and they don't feel like totally ripped off, right? The people who want the hard copy right there, give me a $20 bill, or, sign your name on my Square account and we're good to go. But there's more to it than that. The minimum list price, that's one of the things you have to consider, because Amazon wants to make sure that you don't price your book below the cost that it costs them to print it and also get their share. So here it says the minimum list price is calculated based on your book's printing cost. It ensures that your royalties earned are always enough to cover the cost to print your book. KDP will not allow you to enter a list price lower than the minimum threshold. To calculate the list price, blah, blah, blah. But basically, it's the printing cost divided by 60% royalty rate equals the minimum printing cost. An example, $4.45 printing cost, 60% royalty rate comes out to a based, and that royalty rate is based on the price of the book. So 60% of $20.95, whatever. So it's $4.45 for a 300-page black ink paper book sold in the U.S. marketplace. $4.45, 60% royalty rate equals $7.42 minimum list price. My list price, I think, for a 250-page book is going to be right around $8 or something like that. I know that the royalty that I'll get back after all the rigmarole of shipping and taxes and handling and stuff like that, if I sell a $20.95 book on Amazon, I'm going to get a royalty per book of around $8.40-ish, plus minus whatever. And compare that to the rate that a writer that goes through the traditional publishing route goes. If you get $1 a book for a $20 book as a writer, that's a pretty good royalty. If you're Stephen King, maybe you get $4. I don't know what he gets, but he certainly doesn't get $8. Well, Stephen King might. But anyway, the idea that, and frankly, Mark Schaefer, the guy who wrote the book Marketing Rebellion, the book that I used as my model, he actually does nothing but self-publishing because he's got a big enough posse of people that follow him. He makes more money by self-publishing than if he had gone through an elite publication, a traditional publication route. Interesting. If a lot of people want to get that imprimatur or that imprint on their book so that it's kind of an ego thing, I've been published by Random House or something like that. Well, I don't feel that way, and frankly, Random House would never publish my book. Instead, I'm going to self-publish it. Another thing you have to think about when you get to the publication phase is you got to beg for blurbs. And what does that mean? Well, it means you send emails of the PDF and say, hey, this is in the final stages of being published. Here's a galley-proof PDF of my book. Would you take a look at it, and would you consider blurbing my book? Now, you can do friends and family on that all you want. You can reach out to people who are noted authorities within your field that have a relationship with you. And sometimes you can reach out to people who don't know you at all. For example, on my first book, Rotoma, The ROI of Social Media Top of Mind, I reached out to only five people. And here's the funny thing about it. 2 were A-listers who I didn't know, had never heard of me. And 3 were a combination of B and C listers in terms of their notoriety, in terms of their brand presence in marketing, right? So what happens? I get 3 blurbs back. One person didn't respond at all. Another person said, I'll have to read the whole book and then I'll get back to you. And they didn't respond. One person was a blurb that Spencer X. Smith got via a relationship that he had. But the 2 biggest blurbs, one from Scott Galloway, a professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business, that was because I follow Scott Galloway like crazy. I think he's brilliant. And he responded with a blurb. The other one was Ann Handley, the writer of the book Everybody Writes, the the Wall Street Journal bestseller. Both of them are New York Times or Wall Street Journal or both best-selling writers. Both of them responded because they liked the quality of the book and the way I reached out respectfully to them to ask for it. They were total shots in the dark. But here's the thing. Sometimes shots in the dark actually hit. And when they do, you do what I did, which is get the email from Scott Galloway, come out of my basement office, and my wife sees me and says, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Stephen King just blurbed my first novel," which is how I felt about Scott Galloway blurbing my first marketing book. Yeah, take the shot. Get yourself out there. Take the shot, and you'll be surprised what will happen. In my case, for this book, I've got a bunch of people. I write a ton of stories about Christian Small, about Melanie Diesel, about Alex and Todd Austin. So I have a natural base of people to contact about getting blurbs, and so I did. And that's what I've done is I've collected those blurbs, and you can see some of them right here. And I'm just keeping these in a notes file on my Mac. And as I get new ones coming in, I'll plug them in. And I haven't decided yet necessarily where they will go, but I already have them. And as publication day approaches, I'm going to have to make some decisions about which ones go on the front cover, which go on the back, which I've got in the book 2 pages dedicated to blurbs, which ones go there, etc. But the whole point is I now have them. And I can use them to market my book any place I want. And I got them by asking for them. You don't get if you don't ask. You don't always get what you want. Like, I've got more than one that's kind of a mild blurb. Maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. But it doesn't matter. I've got blurbs, baby. All right, next step of the publication phase, upload and pray. You pray that things are ready to go, because until you have that printed book in your hand with the new files that you just put up, you don't know that the pages are going to be exactly right. Because every time you open a digital file, there's the possibility that you might have moved something that maybe you touch your keyboard and all of a sudden there's an L in the middle of a word and you didn't see it. All these things. I mean, there's so many mistakes that find their way into a book because there's so much involved in it. So that's where the praying comes in. But here's the thing about Kindle Direct Publishing. As you find mistakes, you can make revisions anytime you want by uploading new files, new cover file or new guts file or both. So let's play this out and say, okay, I've got the blurbs I want on my front cover, but the ones on the back, I would love to have a stronger one. All of a sudden, 3 weeks from now, someone finally looked at the book and sends me a better blurb. I can upload a new cover anytime. Also, things like the International Standard Book Number, ISBN number, that can be assigned to you by Kindle Direct Publishing. The Library of Congress control number, which a lot of self-publishers don't deal with, I dealt with it. Why? Because that's what real books do. I want my book to look like a real book. A real book has an LCN number. I'm going to get one. How hard is it? Not hard at all. All you do is go to the Library of Congress. Just if you looked up Library of Congress control number on the Google, you'll be able to find how you can get it. And by the way, I got my LCCN number in advance because they allow self-publishers and publishers, full-bore publishers, to get those LCCNs before the book is actually done. Why? Because they need it to publish the book, right? And even things like the back of the cover barcode, so it can be sold in retail stores, that can be created by KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, or you can create the image yourself. Why do I need to worry about that? Because on January 1st of 2021, I'm uploading the final press-ready files of my book. That is the promise I made on Friday, March 6th, and that is the promise I've been working toward ever since, and it's been the promise that is in very, very close to fulfillment right now. What am I doing the rest of this week between Christmas and New Year's? Polishing this book to as high a sheen as I can get it. Because on Friday, it's a Friday, right? Yeah, Friday, January 1st, I'm uploading the final files and pushing that book live. There's something about January 1st of 2021 that makes me feel like, yeah, that's going to kick 2020's butt. 2021 will be the first day of a new book. And, feel my power. To be the creator of a book allows you to unlock a level up that very few human beings have attained. And if you want to know what that power feels like, write your own book and get it going, because you can. Now, for the first time in human history, you can do it yourself for free. However, once it's up, there's another phase, and I call this phase infinity for a reason, because you can revise this thing whenever you want. Now, I've already talked about the fact that you can upload corrections anytime, 24/7, 365 to Kindle Direct Publishing. There will be a little bit of lag, like they'll see new files have come up. Anybody who's ordering the book might have to wait a day or two as they go through the process of looking through the file and making sure everything's okay. But then it'll go out with those corrections in it, because here's the most painful thing of this process is that you're going to get emails. And those emails are going to say, you missed a comma on page 22. Or, you used the English spelling of humor with a U. I think it'd be more correct, based on the fact that you're an American, that you use humor, Humor, or stuff like that. And, you got to develop a thick skin to deal with those type of librarian-style criticisms. But that's part of putting yourself out there as a nonfiction personal brand. Yeah, I'm not perfect. I am perfectible, and thank you very much for your comment. I'm going to choose to ignore it because the person who gave me that quote is actually British. Thank you. That as an author, all of a sudden you start feeling your power build, because it's like, yeah, I know that. Ooh, that I need to correct, and I can. But that was a choice. If you don't like the choice, write your own book. And that's the power of creation. And the knowledge that you can correct things at any time. And I'm not kidding, 24/7. On my first book, I once found it, and I was just paging through at 2:30 in the morning, paging through the book. I found a mistake, felt the shame of that mistake. And so at 2:30 in the morning, made the correction and uploaded it because I could not stand the idea that the book would be going out with a mistake that I know about. That there are mistakes, I accept. That there's a mistake that I know about and didn't correct, I can't live with that pain. And so I can make the corrections. And then after that, it's all about sitting back and collecting a check. If anyone actually buys the book. And that's the hard part. Just because you chop down a tree in a forest, if no one's there to hear it, doesn't mean it makes a sound. And just because you spent 301 days working your butt off to write a book, doesn't mean anyone's actually going to buy it. So phase 5 is all about marketing that book. Now, how am I going to market this book? Well, I'm going to use my social media feeds because that's where people know me. And I'm only active on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and my podcast. So my number one marketing channel is going to be via my podcast. Because guess what? It's my podcast. I do it myself. I work on it every single Saturday for publication or for premiering on Monday. In fact, yesterday, Monday, brand new episode number 123 came out featuring guest Oliver Bridge or Ollie Bridge from bonjoro.com. That just came out. Well, guess what? It's my podcast. I can put commercials in my podcast. And I can put a commercial as soon as this thing's published. I'm going to have a commercial in my podcast for my new book, Nonfiction Brand. It's all about nonfiction branding, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. I haven't written the copy yet, but you can count on the fact that if you subscribe to Nonfiction Brand, and I hope you will, by the way, you will hear probably about mid-January me doing a promo for my brand new book, Nonfiction Brand. Discover, craft, and communicate the completely true, completely you brand you already are. That's the full title of the book. But I can do that via my podcast because I have a podcast. And by the way, just like this book, you can do a podcast. And the cool thing is, it's actually in the book, the actual numbers, but while there are something like 300 million blogs, currently there are 850,000 podcasts. If I'm going to enter a marketplace, do I want to enter a marketplace with 300 million competitors, potential competitors, or one with 850,000? And in my niche, even fewer. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to work smart, not hard. I'm going to go where I can own a section of that market. And because I've been doing the Nonfiction Brand podcast for 123 episodes, that's over 2 years, because it's a weekly podcast, things are slowly building very organically. Anyway, that's it for me. This is my email address if you have any questions. And by the way, I haven't been able to go through the comments, but I see there are a bunch piling up. I would love to answer questions because we have plenty of time. We have 35 minutes scheduled for questions. So if you have any questions about any of the stuff I've talked about, let's start talking. The other thing I'd like to say is I love presenting. If you've got a group or a gig, let's talk because I would love to present for your organization. And now it's time for questions. So take it away, Andrew. Well, that's what it is, because if you thought like if you're thinking right now, oh my God, that's a ton of stuff to do. You have to understand that it's one step at a time. You start writing a book by starting to write a book. Then you can get more information. Like, I don't know about you, but when I'm in my writing mode, I am dead focused. And I can only do that for like a couple of hours before I need a break. And so what I would do during that break is I would go on YouTube and like, how did I find out about Scrivener? Well, James Fallows is a writer that I really enjoy reading, who writes for The Atlantic, both the print publication and the online publication. And he mentioned the fact that he uses Scrivener to write his books. And I'm like, what the heck is Scrivener? So I went to the second largest compendium or, search engine on the face of the earth, YouTube. Did you know that? YouTube is the second largest search engine. And I typed in Scrivener. Well, guess what? There's a whole community of self-publishing book authors who've posted how they use Scrivener, what it's good for, how to do this. And that'll lead you down one of those wonderful rabbit holes of self-publishing. Like an ISBN number. What's that? How do I get one? Look up the video or follow the links where they go. You don't have to know everything at once. You just do the thing, the bite of the elephant that's in front of you. So, first, what can I write about? That might be where you start, which is, what do I want to write about? In my case, this book has been in my head for 15 years, and I did nothing about it. I didn't even really write blog posts related to it until I realized, get it out of my head and onto the page. And since I've done it once before, it was a whole lot easier, but it was never easy. And that's the whole thing. It'll never be easy, but my God, is it rewarding. Yeah, you can actually put links in it. And I don't use it for all that research stuff, but like novelists will do things like, here's I want to describe the wallpaper from Victorian era. Here's a swatch that I found. I want to put that in and save that. Because in the past it would be, oh, I got to save all these things into a file and hope I don't lose that file on my computer. In Scrivener's case, you drag that image that you got from some internet source, you drag it right into Scrivener, and it sits in a bin, if you will, within your book already. So if you want to describe that. So when it comes to links, like if you're collecting links for scientific reasons or whatever, yeah, you can cut and paste that link into Scrivener, and Scrivener will preserve the link if it is in the copy of the book, which is important because I didn't talk about the fact that you can do a Kindle version of the book by using a PDF that has links in it. So it's incredibly powerful. It's a whole nother presentation. But yes, you can preserve those links. You can preserve the data. You can preserve photos. You can, if it's a digital element of any kind, you can store it in Scrivener with the written part of your book, and it's all in one place. Great question. Okay. And this goes back to my the economics of Amazon and why I'm such a pain in the butt about pricing my book at $20. One, it's a business book, meaning people who buy business books typically have business accounts, meaning they get reimbursed. Like this is professional development as opposed to, whatever. This could potentially be purchased as it has been. Like my first book, I did a presentation at State Bank of Cross Plains. They bought 60 copies of my book. And here's the beauty of it. Instead of buying it through Amazon, where Amazon would take 60% royalty and all that crap, I can buy my book. And this is an estimated number for this new book. But let's say this book is going to cost me $3.80 printed. And then if I buy in bulk and they ship it to me, and shipping's going to be about $10-ish, maybe. Let's say for 50 copies, it might cost me $10, $20 to ship it. I now have 50 copies times $20. You do the math on that, and you can, and all of a sudden, I can sell these copies where if I sold it through Amazon, I'd be getting $8. If I sell these from my house, it costs, with book plus shipping, around $5. I sell it for 20, a flat 20 or 20.95 or whatever. I'm getting $15 a book instead of 8. So, and I can buy as an author as many copies as I want from Amazon for, in the case of my book, probably $3.80 per book plus shipping. So it always pays to buy in bulk because then that shipping cost comes down per book. But think about that. I get someone at a presentation to give me a $20 bill. That's $15 straight to me as profit. Yeah. I send a full PDF, kind of as an in-process PDF. And I did this at the beginning of December. And there were caveats, and I put a watermark on it, says galley proof, not for resale, stuff like that. So they knew it was a galley proof. The other thing is, in my email, I said, I know there are a lot of things that need to be edited and revised in here. Please bear with me. This is at a 90% done. The rest of this month, I'll be spending going through and cleaning things up. However, I would, especially for the people I've written about in the book, I've written about you on pages 35 to 38. Please check those closely. I would hate to have your name misspelled or me get a fact wrong. Well, number one, you get an email from me saying that I wrote about you on 4 pages of my book. Are you going to blow off that email? Hell no. You're going to go grab that PDF. You're going to find those pages. You're going to read what I have to say. And because I'm writing really good stuff about you, you're going to feel really great about it. You're going to get back to me with a couple of things that may need changing. Like I wrote about one guy and they said he went to Ohio State University and said, no, I went to Ohio University. Okay, great. Thank you for that correction. And you're going to give me a blurb. For them, and some people haven't got back to me. I think that's probably because of COVID overload and stuff like that. But for the most part, I've gotten back some really great blurbs from people that I haven't seen in 15 years because we have a relationship. So, for example, the cover blurb is from a guy I worked with at the very beginning of my career. And we've kind of monitored each other via LinkedIn on what you're doing, but we haven't been in conversation for years. And he got the book. He was delighted to be able to blurb it. And he happens to be the founder and CEO of a marketing strategy company. That's a good blurb to put on the cover of your book. As am I. Yeah.